This is an AMI podcast.
Blink and you're 28, and everyone else is now a mile down the road and you're still trying to find it. And the irony is hardly lost on you that in wanting to live, to learn, to find yourself, you've gotten lost. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio, where we talk all things audiobooks on a weekly basis. Thanks for joining us, even if it is not a Saturday, because, we release on Saturdays. But it's a wonderful podcast with lots of great conversations. I'll start with the quote of the week. First of all, I'm Ramya Amuddin, host of the show, and Nisreen Abdelmajid is also joining me because you are getting into this fun audiobook talk with me, Nisreen. And so the quote of the week is from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and it's written by V.E. Schwab. I believe I'm saying that correctly, but somebody who's going to join us in a bit will correct me if I'm wrong. This book was released in 2020. It's one of the books I'm reading for the evening book club with Aamer Khan. And I'm like 3/4 of the way in, right? It's really, really, really good. It's a long book, 17 hours, give or take, if you're reading it on normal pace, speed, whatever they call it on audiobooks. And I just find it to be one of the most poetic things I've read in a really, really long time. Almost every line, every concept, every character, everything, every image is just so poetically described, and it's beautiful, like so beautifully written. There's elements of fantasy to it, but there's just a lot of this poetry, and it was very, very hard for me to pick a quote from the book because I love the whole thing. So that's that. I'll pause, put a pin in it there because I want to talk more about it with Aamer and have more of a back and forth. But let's take a look at the CELA homepage. The featured titles at the very top at celalibrary.ca, C-E-L-A library.ca, is Red X, a novel by David Dumchuk. It's a ghost and horror read. The next one is The Audacity by Catherine Ryan, and this is humor. The last one under the featured titles is The Dark Remains by Ian Rankin and William McGilvany. And this is a mysteries and crime stories. Not a lot of updates on the CELA blog, so we're going to move right over to what's trending with Nisreen. What do you have for us today, girl?
We got a few things. So Audible.com tweeted out this week's top releases, starting off with Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone by Diana Gabaldon. Number 2 is These Precious Days by Anne Pachette. Number 3, Fear No Evil by James Patterson. Number 4, The Becoming the Dragon Heart Legacy Book 2 by Nora Roberts. And one more to mention is The Wolf by J.R. Ward. So go check out on audible.com for the rest of this week's hottest book releases. But moving to one of Canada's top trends is hashtag Grammys. And I know what you're thinking. Nasreen, we're here for audiobooks. Why are you talking about the Grammys? Well, that's because for the 64th Annual Grammy Awards, Barack Obama is nominated for his audiobook, A Promised Land. And it's very deep. It's a lot of information, which is pretty cool. So in the highly anticipated first volume of his presidential memoirs, Barack Obama takes readers on a compelling journey from his earliest political aspirations to the pivotal Iowa caucus victory that demonstrated the power of grassroots activism to the watershed night of November 4th, 2008, when he was elected 44th President of the United States, becoming the first African American to hold the nation's highest office. So reflecting on the presidency, he offers a unique and thoughtful exploration of both the awesome reach and the limits of presidential power. So I can imagine he will be making more memoirs on this for sure.
If you can get through the first one, then we can anticipate more. I'm not sure how long this one is. I feel like it's another long one, but the memoir that was written, first of all, good on Barack. Okay, this is awesome. It's nominated for a Grammy. Let's just not skip right over that. That's incredible. And then I wanted to say that I started reading Michelle Obama's memoir.
Oh.
Which was
Your hesitation
It was
tells it all.
long.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, let me tell you that Barack Obama's memoir is 29 hours long.
okay, there you go. And I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like Michelle's was longer.
really?
Yeah,
We
okay,
should look
someone's
into
gonna correct
that.
me again, but I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, it was so long, and I'm not using the word "was" in the past tense that I have finished listening to it and it was long. I'm using it as it was long and I couldn't finish it. So
Mm.
it's there. I don't know if I've fully given up on it yet, but I'm not a completionist, so I may never get back to it. It is still there. I'm still in like chapter 3 or 4 or whatever it was, but it is the thing about memoirs I find is if they're not written for the type of reader you are, no matter what pulled you in, like the person themselves, the stories, like with Barack, there's a lot to look into, right? He's the first black president.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He has an amazing family life. But I just can't, I don't know, because now I'm scared because Michelle's was long and his is long too. And I'm just wondering if I can get through it.
I don't know
Yeah.
how I can go with a long audiobook in general, whether it's a memoir or a novel.
Anything else?
I
Yeah.
I don't know how long I can take because I have a short attention span, and sometimes I have to repeat a sentence if
True.
I'm like I'll be listening, but I won't be listening. You know what I mean? You get
Mm-hmm.
me? I will be listening, but at the same time I'm zoned out. I'm like, wait, what did I just go through? It's just like when I was in school and I was reading a textbook or whatever. I'll be reading, but I wasn't,
Yeah.
taking in all that information.
Yes.
So I have to start with something small. I have to start with short novels or something that I'm really genuinely interested in, got me invested, or else I cannot go for it.
It's true. I totally agree. And the thing is, it takes a lot of focus, anyways, if you're not an all audio person, if you're not just listening to audiobooks all the time or taking in information auditorily all the time, then it's a
Hmm.
very big jump from visual learning to audiobook listening. So, yeah,
Yeah.
good. Oh, we've
It's
been
something
very
you have to
candid.
get used to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've been very candid this segment. So let's see where it goes from here. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review, where we talk all things audiobooks on this podcast. I'm your host, Ramia Amuddin, here with Nisreen Abdelmajid, and it's time for Pause or Play. This time, it's going to be a Ramia choice, okay, everyone? So this is a book that I've read before, but you may not have listened to or heard of even, and it's called All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. My friend was a really huge Colleen Hoover fan in high school, so I was very influenced by this. All right, here we go with the synopsis. Sometimes it's the one who loves you who hurts you the most. Lily hasn't always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. So when she feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon, Ryle Kincaid, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, maybe even a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. But Ryle's completed aversion to relationships is disturbing. Even as Lily finds herself becoming the exception to his no dating rule, she can't help but wonder what made him that way in the first place. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Kerrigan, her first love, and a link to the past that she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. It Ends With Us is an unforgettable tale of love that comes at the ultimate price. So, after hearing this synopsis, Nisreen, starting with you, pause or play.
I mean, Lily, we always fall for the arrogant ones, don't we? I'd say I'd play because it's the type of cheesy, corny
Uh-huh.
books I would read. I
Okay.
hate them, but I would still go for it.
Yeah, would you call it a guilty pleasure? Huh?
It is a guilty
Okay.
pleasure,
Wow.
exactly.
Seamless transition, are we not?
Hmm.
Okay, Aamer, up to you. Pause or play.
definitely play. And I was actually going to make the opposite comment as Nasreen in terms of it's refreshing to see somebody fall for the brainy one, a neurosurgeon, right?
Wow. Oh, yeah. You totally
But
read
He's
between the
also,
lines.
yeah.
I
yeah.
was like, neurosurgeon? Was that true? Yeah, that is true. Okay, so play for both
And
of you.
and the story also reminds me a lot of the America Singer book we read, The Selection, where she's sort of falling for a new person, and then the old flame sort of rushes back into her life to confuse
Mm-hmm.
everything.
That's a really good comparison, but as someone who has already listened to the book, I'm going to tell you it's absolutely not like that at all. So now you might be tempted to read it.
Sounds exciting.
Exactly. Aamer Khan is the voice that you're hearing. He's here from Toronto, joining us here on AMI Audiobook Review. And you join us at the end of the month, like close to the end of the month, to give us your reviews, impressions, recommendations. And we get to a lot of audiobook talk. But Aamer, you haven't been part of the AR listening scale yet, so I thought that we should put you through it just for fun. I feel like the answers might be predictable, but who knows? Who knows? You're a bit of a mystery. So, starting with the even numbers from 0 to 10, 0 being anti-audiobooker, are you 2, tempted but, so there's definitely an appeal to listening to audiobooks, but I'm terrified. 4, lazy listener. You're the one who could listen more, but you're too preoccupied on Netflix, which sometimes I think this is the case. 6, pile them on. Toss me the recommendations and I will listen. 8, I can't hear, I'm listening. No matter what I'm doing or where I'm going, earbuds are in and an audiobook is on. And 10, beyond help and broke. Too late to turn back now. I eat, sleep, and breathe audiobooks, and I'm not at all upset about it.
Probably put myself at a 4, but I think like Siobhan from last week, it depends on the week for me because like you said, sometimes a Netflix series will really grab me and I am doing nothing for a week except watching that Netflix series.
Yeah, you're totally a binger.
And sometimes it's the reverse with audiobooks.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the odd numbers. We're narrowing down your listening habits here from the pickiness listening scale. 1, the sleeper. I really want to listen, but fall asleep doing it. 3, the self-helper. I listen to audiobooks exclusively for self-help reasons. Actually, this is a one suggestion from you for the scale. 5, the verifier. If it's hot on the market, I'll probably listen. 7, speed racing. 1.5x plus is the only way to take in audiobooks, especially if you're listening to Michelle or Barack's audiobooks. And 9, the humanitarian. Human narrated books only, please.
I think I'm going to have to go with none of the above for myself. As I said in my first appearance on the show, I'll read almost anything out there, whether it's human or synth. So I'll even sometimes read something because it's beside something I was looking for. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I predicted that one for sure. You're the non-pickiness on the pickiness scale. So, Amir, let's get to some of the books that you're listening to right now. There's a few in the mix.
Indeed, there are. I finished The Audacity by Catherine Ryan, which has been up on the SELA homepage for some time now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very similar to Bossy Pants by Tina Fey in terms of being humorous and funny and an easy read. It's a lot more in-depth than Tina Fey's book, though. There's a lot more personal stories that Catherine Ryan goes into. And there's a certain appeal to it as well because Catherine Ryan herself is Canadian, but she moved to the UK quite some time ago. So it's an interesting read from an audio perspective because she uses British terms but hasn't lost her Canadian accent. So you hear terms like lorry and cross and things in a Canadian accent. So that can be somewhat entertaining if people are into that.
Wow. Haven't even heard the word lorry in a long time. Okay, that's awesome.
Sticking with the theme of memoirs, this month we're reading for Kelly and Company Book Club, as well as Amer's Evening Book Club, The Girl with 9 Wigs by Sophie Vanderstap, which is a book about a 21-year-old cancer survivor in Holland. And it's also very light and an easy read in terms of being on the same plane as something like The Audacity by Catherine Ryan or Tina Fey. A lot, obviously, less humor, and there are more complicated subject matters because it is talking about cancer and all the things that go with it. But in my opinion, it's a very excellent read. If you've never experienced serious illness or been around somebody with serious illness, it's a great read without dragging you into depression or making you really, really sad.
Mm-hmm. So this was a recommendation by Caroline Bordeaux, and I thought it was really great because she said that she binged it in a weekend. For some reason, that quote really sticks with me. She's like, I read this in a weekend. You guys got to read it. And it's absolutely that fast that well paced, and the balance of humor, lightheartedness, as well as very, very serious stuff that has to do with cancer. Great.
And the other book for this month for Aamer's Evening Book Club is the one you mentioned earlier, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I just really, really like this book. And I spoke about it, I think, the last time I was on the show, in terms of being a book that really grabs you and pulls you in and you don't want to get out. And I'm thrilled that you're enjoying the book as well, Rania.
Yeah, have you read other books by this author? Because I was looking through, and there are quite a few other ones that fall really into the realm of fantasy.
Yeah, I think her most famous book is something called Vicious, which I have not read. This is the first book I've read of hers, but after this book, it's going to be difficult to top.
Mm-hmm. That's the fear I have with a lot of books. You read it and you're like, oh my gosh, if this author does this with all the books, then I'm down. But I'm very, very nervous about giving something else a chance and then tainting this one. So yeah.
Especially after 17 hours, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you know what? I don't say this often, but it doesn't feel like a 17-hour book. It's just, you're absolutely that captivated through the whole thing. A few weeks ago, Aamer, we spoke to Ben Aquaco on the show, and he got into what we started calling guilty pleasure reads. And you want to grab onto this thread too. So what do you think, you personally, is a guilty pleasure read?
If you're embarrassed to recommend it to somebody else, it's definitely a guilty pleasure for whatever reason. But I think for me personally, it really has to do with things that are unexpected based on who you are and what people think you would read. It's also maybe something a little bit more throwaway or cheap in terms of, it's not something, a book that you would read and think about for forever. It's a book that you would read and sort of forget, but enjoy the ride type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And sometimes it's just about the title.
Oh, okay. So what are some of the embarrassing books that would you or would you not recommend to others?
So one book I was definitely shy to recommend to others, to the point where I would not mention it at all, but I have become a lot more comfortable, is a book by Susan Jane Gilman, which we've read for the Kelly and Company book club, called Undress Me in the Temple of Heaven.
Yep.
And yes, the title is definitely something that is sort of risque. The book obviously has nothing to do with that particular title. The book is actually about two Ivy League college graduates who decide to go on a world tour in like 1986 or something. And none of them have any experience in backpacking or traveling outside the United States. And they decide to go to China first, which has not allowed outside visitors until that particular day. And it's a lovely book about friendship, in my opinion. I actually really, really like this book and have read it more than once. You've actually read the human narrated version, which is actually narrated by the author. I did the synth. And
they fool you with the title, eh?
Susan Jane Gilman's title are usually a little bit edgy and dramatic. I think
good
one of her
marketing.
other famous...
It grabs some people to read it.
Absolutely. One of her other titles is called Kiss My Tiara. So she definitely likes to be edgy.
I would grab it.
There you go. Another book I read actually very recently is by an author named David Wong. And the title of the book that I have on Sila is called Zoe Punches the Future in the Dick. And as you can expect, it has an out there title, but this book is just as out there as the title is.
Huh.
So this book is very, very humorous. It's about a future dystopia that's not too far away. It's a little bit more technologically advanced in our world right now, but David Wong does an excellent job of keeping things light, funny, but at the same time examining a lot of human sort of traits like groupthink and how group mentality works and how you can sort of go against the grain. The central character is sort of a girl that's on the younger side of 20s, and she's inherited a massive fortune from her father that she didn't know existed because she grew up literally in a trailer. And she's now got this massive responsibility to deal with this sort of out of control city and solve a mystery at the same time.
Wow. So do you have a bunch of guilty pleasure series that you either have recommended to people? Because I'm looking at the list and I'm like, yeah, he's made us read all these.
And that's the thing about recommending books to your friends and family, that you really want to enjoy these books with other people in a lot of cases, and that's where you can sort of get out of your comfort zone to start recommending guilty pleasures to other people. And it sort of builds your confidence to be like, okay, well, did you like Undress Me in the Temple of Heaven? Okay, well, now I can recommend something else, or they can
Yes.
recommend something to you.
You're building the trust up,
Um,
right? Like, let me ease you into my guilty pleasure reads.
Yeah, maybe not start with that one. Another book I really enjoyed was The Heartbreak Messenger.
Oh, that was so good.
And this is more on the juvenile side. It's about a junior high kid who finds himself working as a go-between for high school couples in terms of being hired to break them up because they don't have the guts to do it themselves. And I find it's a very nice little book. We read it for Aamer's Evening Book Club, and a lot of people really, really enjoyed it. But I would definitely consider that a guilty pleasure because not too many adults of my age would be recommending a book about a junior high school kid. But going back to your original question about series, The Princess Diaries is something that I really enjoy by Meg Cabot. It's also about a high school girl who has sort of self-confidence issues. It's the series of the same name in terms of the movies with Anne Hathaway. There's several books, so I mean, if you like the first one, you can keep going. And I don't think there's like at least a dozen of those books to keep you happy. We've also read this in the book club, and quite a few people were surprised of how much they enjoyed going back to high school and being in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah, I think that some of the stuff, like especially what you're saying, younger, juvenile, that kind of vibe it feels like not nostalgic, but you could kind of relate from that younger piece of you, right? Which is really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, when you start reading these types of books, you're like, wow, high school could have been so much worse for me. I'm glad I'm not these people. So at least there's that.
Absolutely.
On the adult side of the scale, I really enjoy Janet Ivanovich's series that central character's name is Stephanie Plum. The titles are all over the place, but usually have to do with numbers. So, One for the Money, I believe, is the first one, and then it sort of goes up from there. And this is another really light and sort of off-the-wall type of comedy type of book where, a female woman from Jersey finds herself jobless, and she was doing a retail job or something at 20-something. And the only thing she can figure out to do is to be a bondswoman because her cousin owns a bonds office. So she basically becomes a bond enforcement agent while knowing absolutely nothing, and has all sorts of mishaps along the way, but also has to solve a whole bunch of mysteries. And there's quite a few of those books too, and it's very well written. It's surprising how long these books are, because once you start reading them, you find yourself, you're done, and it was like a 300-page book, and you're like, what?
Yep.
What happened? Where's the next one?
That's a guilty pleasure. Thank you so much, Aamer. We're wrapping it there, but we'll talk to you next month.
Looking forward to it.
Guilty Pleasure Reads with Aamer Khan. That's, today's title. But check out Kelly and Company live on November 30th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on AMI Audio for our review together of The Girl with 9 Wigs. And we will be talking live with Caroline on the show. For now, happy audiobook listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back next week with AMI Audiobook Review.
This was an AMI podcast. For more accessible media, visit ami.ca.